That was Shinichiro Isago, the man leading artificial intelligence for one of Japan's most popular apps, Line. The theme today is shifting societies, and one of the biggest catalysts for this is artificial intelligence. It is going to shape our societies in the near future, and therefore we are going to stick to this. And therefore, join me in welcoming Vikram Anbaragan, the Director of Product for Language Technologies at Amazon Web Services. He is really the man who's helped to build about 8 solutions for AWS, which it sells to its customers. And one of them, and I kid you not, sees what you say and knows when you mean those words and when you don't. Now, I can think of 1,000 use cases in every home, at every office, but let's ask the man what he does. Vikram, welcome to Business Insider's Global Trends Festival 2020. As a journalist, I know how difficult it is to sound intelligent, and I'm sure it's 100,000 times more difficult to actually be intelligent. And now here we are trying to imagine humans creating intelligence. I mean, they type a few codes away on a computer, and the next thing you know, the machine knows what you want to have for dinner, and just like your mum, in your mother tongue, it will convince you why you should have salads instead. What is this world? I can't even imagine. Anyway, you've been with AWS for a long time. I think what I'm really trying to ask is, what do you feel about this leaps of progress that we have seen in artificial intelligence in recent years? Why don't you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sriram. Actually, I've been with Amazon for over 12 years, of which the last 4 years were with AWS. So, we've been through our machine learning journey over the last 20 years at Amazon. So we started off doing things like personalization and supply chain management early on. And then those same personalization models, we took them and significantly improved them. And today we use them for things like Amazon Prime, where we're making content recommendations where, this may be a good show for you to watch. We also use machine learning in a number of other places. For example, in our fulfillment centers, where we use it for forecasting demand across the globe, so that we know how much quantity we require of every single product that Amazon sells. And that way we're able to meet the customer expectations on convenience, cost, and delivery speed. And then, like you mentioned, we built a lot of natural language technology, which gives consumers an entirely new way to interact with technology using Alexa. All right, millions of devices sold are almost in every home. We've also worked on a lot of groundbreaking technology for autonomous flight with the Prime Air drones. We use a lot of robotics in our fulfillment centers to speed up processes and make us more efficient. So this is a big cultural change for us, but it's something we feel that every organization can do.
Vikram, we at Business Insider like to keep things simple and reach as many people as we can. So why don't you explain to us, if I were running a small business and I want to know what this beast AI is, how do I approach it? Where do I begin? What's the process?
I think the first place to start when you want to get started on your AI journey is to get your data in order. So when it comes to machine learning and we're talking to our customers, they tell us that more than 50% of their time while building machine learning models, they spend it on data, getting the data, cleaning it up, and then making it ready for their machine learning model. So basically, machine learning is nothing but taking a lot of historical data and then learning from it and predicting what's going to happen in the future, right? That's what machine learning is. So getting your data right is very critical. And if you don't invest in establishing a really good data strategy, all the machine learning talent that these companies hire are going to be forced to spend a lot of their time just cleaning up the data and getting it ready, rather than focusing on building really cool models for their companies that can, make their customers' lives better and give them an advantage over their competition. So we recommend that when you're starting out, there's 3 important questions that any company should ask themselves. What data is available today? What data can be made available? And a year from now, what data will we wish we had started collecting today? Right? Because sometimes you may not have the data today, but you don't want to go 1 year from now and say, hey, I wish we had started doing that a year back. If you think about that right now, you can just start on your process right away. So when you're trying to figure out what data is available today, one thing which we notice often is what we call as data hugging, right? So there are these teams in every company, and they're working on different projects. So they get really attached to their data, and they don't want to share that data with other groups. This may be okay in the beginning, where they can build their own little machine learning models. But if you want to have good results over a long period of time, you need that expansive view of data across your organization. So it's really important to break down these silos between all your different teams and make that data available to those that need it when they need it. But along the way, you also need to make sure that you have the good access control policies as well as data governance, right? Because you don't want data to fall in the wrong hands. So now once you have that data, you need to figure out what part of that data is important, right? So some of that may be more important than the others. Then you've got to figure out how to store that data, what's your strategy for storing all the data. And then most importantly, you also need to figure out tools to do things like de-identification, anonymization. Sorry for using jargon, but essentially what I mean is any company, when you have data, it can have a lot of your customers' information, right? It can have their name, it can have the credit card number. So it's important to redact all that so that when you put that data out for analysis across your company, your customers' data is protected. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does make sense. And in fact, you preempted my question. I was at some point in this interview going to ask you about data privacy and how, when we want to allow data to flow freely between one department to another, one organization to another, as well as with clients like yourselves, how do we protect the customer's interest, the user's interest? And I think you've preempted me there. So I will move on to my next question, which is, what is the difference in attitudes when you speak to a business owner in America and a business owner in India? What is the difference in the way they look at AI and its potential?
We don't see much difference at all. And in fact, we think this is the golden age of machine learning. Right? So once considered peripheral, ML technology has become a core part of businesses across the world. So every domain, from healthcare to agriculture to fintech to your industry, media and entertainment, ML holds great promises for all these industries universally. Right, so I'll give you some examples. So I'll give you one global example, right? So Cerner, which is a global health and technology leader, they're using machine learning to improve patient care, and they're evolving from being reactive to being proactive in their treatments. And they're even predicting congestive heart failure 15 months ahead of clinical diagnosis, right? That's a global example. Now let's look at in India. So more retail, they're the market leader in fresh category in food and grocery in India. They're using machine learning to simultaneously manage both their in-stock availability as well as they want to minimize their wastage, right? They don't want to over order things and waste the produce. So they were able to improve their forecasting accuracy from around 27% to 76%. And they also reduced their wastage by 20% by doing this, right? So that's one great example. One more, so Redbus, right? I think everybody knows or has used Redbus at some point or the other. So they use machine learning to improve the usability of the reviews. So if, once someone travels by their bus, they ask them to give a review. And when the customer provides a review, they need to be classified in the right categories so that when the new customers are coming there and trying to go through the reviews, they're able to search and find the information they need, right? So by using machine learning, they improved this classification of their reviews. And so 50% reduction in uncategorized reviews. And that, again, results in better sales for their company. So if you look at the overall numbers, worldwide, there's a 2018 report from Deloitte that says that 63% of companies have invested in machine learning to catch up with their rivals or to narrow their lead. And there's another IDC report that predicts that in 2020, the AI spending will reach 50 billion plus, right? And that's a 32% jump over 2019. So the question today is no longer whether a company should have a machine learning strategy, but rather how can we get started, and how quickly and how effectively can we make it possible. So that's what we're seeing when we're talking to customers.
Well, that definitely sounds good, but we've had a tough year in 2020. So, do those forecasts remain good right now, or are there any changes?
Sure. So what we're seeing is, AI is in fact being used in a lot of new ways, whether that is for governments to reach out to their citizens using interactive voice response systems, using Lex, um, or to process forms coming in using OCR, Textract, OCR technology. So there's a lot of new ways in which AI is being used. So we haven't seen any changes in these forecasts.
Vikram, I hear your optimism and I'm curious what makes you so optimistic. So, why don't you share with us some experiences, some anecdotes that makes you so bullish on what artificial intelligence and machine learning can achieve for this society and the economy?
No, like I said, we are in the golden age of machine learning already, and the examples I gave you clearly show that across industries we're seeing a very strong adoption of AI. On that note, what we hear from customers is, hey, how do I pick where to apply machine learning, right? So many customers know that they want to use machine learning, but they're saying, how do I pick my first problem that I need to focus on, right? To have a successful machine learning strategy. So in those cases, what we say is, think about three dimensions, right? So look for your data readiness, look for your business impact, and then what we call ML applicability, right? Whether ML is the right solution for this problem. So let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. When you're getting into machine learning, it's really important to balance the speed with business value, right? So you don't want to get into like a 3-year plan and say, after 3 years, I'm going to launch this thing. Pick a business problem which is really important, can have a huge impact on your business, and we can solve within 6 to 10 months, right? And then out of those problems, pick one where you have all the data. Like we were talking about, having the data is really important for you to be successful with machine learning. And then figure out if machine learning can really help. Like, you don't want to try to pick something that doesn't really need to be fixed, right? And again, in some cases, companies over-index on the business impact and pick some really complicated problem that doesn't have a lot of data. So what that's going to do for you is just make your data scientists really frustrated because they're not able to get the data they need to solve your problem for you, right? But in some cases, again, you may have a lot of data and ML is really the right solution, but the problem is not big enough. In those cases, it's okay to do POCs. It may not have a big impact on your organization, but it's good to use those to build your skills while you're collecting data for the more important high impact problems. Let me give you an interesting example here, right? Formula One, right? We all, love Formula One. Growing up, I've watched a lot of Formula One races, right? So what they wanted to do was they wanted new ways to deliver race metrics that could change the way that fans and teams are experiencing racing, right? But they had about 65 years of historical data that they need to sift through. So what they did was they put together their technical team as well as the domain experts and said, okay, what's the data that we can use to deliver value for our fans? And they figured out the most important data, which then they handed to the data scientists who use Amazon SageMaker, which is our product that you could, AWS product that you can use to build machine learning models, to train models. And they were able to extract performance statistics. They were able to make race predictions and also relay some really engaging insights to their fans about these split-second decisions and strategies that the teams are adopting. right? Because you got to be really fast in making these decisions, and ML is able to process all that and quickly give insights to the viewer. This is a very interesting topic because these cars, they're loaded with technology. So to give you some sense of it, there's about 120 sensors on each car that generate about 3 gigabytes of data during the race, and that's about 1,500 data points every second, right? So they were had to use another AWS service called Kinesis, which is just able to take all this large amount of data coming in and then process it in real time. And using that, they were able to figure out how every driver is performing in every twist and turn. And then, that tells them whether this driver is overexerting themselves or how are they performing. It was a really cool use case, and made me very happy to see ML being used in one of my favorite sports. To be successful in machine learning, like you pointed out, it's really important to have the right skill sets. And it's not only your engineers, right? You want to train not only your engineers, but also your line of business leaders to understand how machine learning can add value to your company. So to give you some data here, right? So the World Economic Forum says that AI could create about 58 million net new jobs over the next few years. So that's a lot of opportunity. But there's another report from Tencent Research Institute that says that currently there are about 300,000 AI engineers worldwide. So you can imagine the huge gap in skills that needs to be filled over the next few years. So when companies are trying to get started on machine learning, recruiting these highly experienced machine learning talent is really hard. It's very competitive and it's very expensive as well. So we recommend that companies are well served by developing their internal talent, right? So you have already engineers working in your organization. So give them the training, give them the tools, and develop that talent. And that way, you're not only giving them an opportunity, right? Developers like it because they're learning new technologies, upskilling. At the same time, you're able to attract new talent because everybody now wants to work for your company because you got a great training program, you got a good ML strategy, and they want to be part of it. So to give you an example of how we did it at Amazon, about 6 years ago, we started what we call as ML University, a machine learning university. And we used that to train our engineers on machine learning. And what we did was last year, we took that and made that content available for free to our customers worldwide. And since then, we've seen more than 100,000 developers start their ML journey using that content. Right. There's also, we partner with companies like Udacity, Coursera, and edX to bring real-world training to students. To get started, there's also cool ways to get started with machine learning. For example, we have this program called Deep Racer, which is 1/18 scale race car, keeping with the Formula One theme, that you can train using reinforcement learning, and you can also try it out on a 3D racing simulator to see how quickly you can race across a lap. And there's also a global racing league. So we made it fun and enjoyable for developers not only to learn, but also in the process, build a community around machine learning.
That was a fascinating tale, Vikram. Thanks a lot for sharing that with us. I'm sure this is leaving our audience, just like me, with a lot of information and inspiration to read more about artificial intelligence and machine learning, know more about it because it is going to be an important factor shaping our societies in the coming years. Thank you so much for your time, and we have to now move on to our next session, and it's an absolutely starlit panel with 4 women who have made a mark and who want to make way for other women to make a mark in this society. India's suppressed potential, 50% of this population, that is the women of this country, are not given enough opportunities or enough resources to chase their dreams. How can we make that happen? Up next, Sangeeta Reddy in conversation with Kiran Majumdar Shaw, Nandini Piramal, and Vanikola.